So good morning everybody, my name is Urs Fischer, I'm Secretary General of the European Stroke Organization. I'm here at the European Stroke Organization conference in Prague. I have two guests today, it's Raul Nogueira and Tudor Jovin. Thank you very much for coming. They are both the principal investigators of the DAWN trial, which will be presented today. Congratulations for the trial. So could you give me please a brief summary of the background of the trial?
So thank you, Urs, for the opportunity of being here and discuss the results and rationale for our trial. So approximately about 10 years ago, we started to take interest in the population of patients that woke up with strokes and still had limit core high NIH stroke scale. We felt that they were at high chances of expanding their infarcts, as well as the patients that would come beyond the so-called therapeutic window that was established at that time of being around 8 hours. So we start this collaboration at the level of several centers, looking for pilot data to design this trial with the hopes that it would expand the treatment window by incorporating collateral flow into the equation of good outcomes after reperfusion. So you have known for a long time that reperfusion, that outcomes are inversely related to time after successful reperfusion stroke treatment. But what you want to show is by incorporating the patients with better collateral flow, you could, let's say, buy time and treat some of those patients at later time windows and still see a benefit.
Okay, that's very interesting. So we heard an announcement already at the beginning of this year that the trial has been stopped prematurely. So what were the reasons and what were the results of this trial?
So the way we planned the trial was adaptive design with planned interim looks. And the reason we did that was that, as Raul mentioned, while we had some experience with treating these patients beyond the 6-8 hour time window, we had very little information about the behavior of the control group. There was virtually no information about how the control group, which consists of patients with good collaterals, with a big mismatch on imaging, how they behave if they're not treated. And for that reason, we were not sure exactly how to calculate the sample size. So for that reason, we decided to use an adaptive design. Based on the adaptive design, the first interim analysis that allowed stopping of the trial based on efficacy was at 200 patients. That happened after the 200 patients were enrolled. Until the Data Safety Monitoring Board analyzed the data and made recommendation to stop the trial, there were another 6 patients enrolled. So this is how we got to the final of 206 patients. The Data Safety Monitoring Board looked at the data and concluded that pre-specified threshold for stopping for success have been met and recommended that the trial is stopped.
So now I'm very keen to know the results. Could you please give me a brief update? What is DAWN trial showing?
So the primary endpoint of the DAWN trial was 90-day outcomes, as I said, assessed by the utility weight modified rank scale, which we both believe would be a more patient-centric approach to look at outcomes. The modified rank scale is not a linear scale, so the different transitions across the disability scale should have different weights, at least they seem to, according to patients and families. So we felt that would be a better way to assess the results of the trial. There is also a nested dichotomous modified rank scale 0 to 2 to look at 90-day independence. So essentially what the trial demonstrates is for the rate of good outcomes, independence at 90 days, the treatment group had 48.6% rate of good outcome, and the control had only 13.1% chances of good outcome, translating in a number need to treat to see a good outcome of just 2.8, and the number to see any benefit across the disability scale of only 2.0, which is one of the largest treatment effects of any acute stroke trials to date.
Well, that's a really striking news. What's the safety aspect? Are there any safety concerns regarding these trials, or is there no really safety signal?
Well, we can always make this procedure safer, but relative to the other endovascular trials, the safety results were in line. The symptomatic hemorrhage rate was 4.8%, non-statistically significantly different than the control group. The symptomatic hemorrhage was defined by ECAS criteria and is very much in line with the other endovascular trials that were performed within conventional time windows. The primary safety endpoint was stroke-related death, which was again non-statistically significant between the two groups, but nominally lower in the endovascular group.
Okay.
And the rate of serious adverse events was not any higher than the other endovascular trials that were previously published.
Okay, that looks very encouraging. So no major safety concerns. What about implementation now? I mean, translation from the trial into daily clinical practice is always a challenge. How do you think you can implement this trial in daily clinical practice?
So that's a great question. So in order to better evaluate what would be the real-world applicability of this data, we actually explored the TRIVO registry, which is an open registry where the only criteria for enrollment is that the stent retriever device has to be the first use device for any large vessel occlusion stroke. So out of that registry, we extract patients that had similar inclusion criteria to the DAWN trial in terms of site of occlusion, meaning intracranial ICA and M1, baseline modified rank scale of 0 to 1, and obviously patients that were treated within the 6 to 24 hour window, okay, and also had a comparison with the patients that were treated 0 to 6, okay. So when you compare the two cohorts of 0 to 6 with the 6 to 24 hours, we actually see a very, very similar outcomes in terms of reperfusion, good rate of outcomes, mortality, intracranial hemorrhage. So the procedure seems to be phased as safe and efficacious at a larger, broader application as well. We had about 50% rate of good outcome in the late treated patients in this sub-cohort, in this down-like cohort of the TRIVO registry, which mirrors what you found in the trial. Which is also interesting is that the earlier cohort of these ICA M1 patients are very similar to the SWIFT Prime trial, right, within 0 to 6, and that cohort had 56% rate of good outcome, which is very similar with SWIFT Prime at 55. So it looks like that you have a good external and internal validation of the data, and again, looking at the more widespread applicability of this technique.
So these are really fantastic news for the stroke world. Thank you very much for running this trial. Congratulations to the trials, and thank you very much for coming to ESOC.
Thank you.
Thank you.